We're halfway through 2026 and I've painted quite a few models this year, so I wanted to talk through each of those on today's video. Welcome back to Elderwood Games. My name is Thomas and let's get into it. So for 2026, I've actually painted quite a few models so far, even though I did take some time away from the hobby just to kind of relax, take a vacation, and that sort of thing. I've painted quite a bit for each of my armies, and for the rest of the year I definitely want to continue expanding that, and we'll talk a little bit about that maybe at the end of this video. So for starters, and we really started off big with one of my favorite models in my collection, is the Winged Hive Tyrant. This is one that I had a ton of fun to paint, and it was just one that I sort of put together over a weekend, and I was like, hey, you know what, let's just go ahead and paint this sucker. I think it's going to be a fun model, so let's just get it done. So basically within the first week of the year, I finished painting it, and I just really love how it turned out. I feel like the wings were a labor of love to an extent. It was one of those that it was definitely like, I really don't know if this is going to look good until the very, very end. So it was very much a trusting of the process, and I think that's kind of part of why I find it to be one of my favorite models in my collection. The next few units are all Tyranids units. I have a tendency to sort of batch collect Tyranids. So I did a brood of 6 Von Ryan's Leapers, 3 melee warriors, and then 2 squads of 10 termagants. Really, this is just army painting, but I do really enjoy painting my Tyranids. It can be a little intense at times just because of the sort of steps I have to go through. So for these, and also the Hive Tyrant, it's just a prime of black, a base coat of blue, a highlight of a light lavender color on the blue, base coating all the carapace red, and all the talons, brains, and claws in a dark green, and then putting a pink sponging over the carapace, washing everything with a royal blue wash, reapplying some pink to the carapace, and then doing edge highlights on the weapons in a light green, and then going back over any brain bits with light green and kind of bumping up that saturation and contrast until I get the desired effect. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're doing it across almost 30 miniatures, it can become very time consuming. So I do have quite a bit of Tyranids on the desk right now, so I'll be going through that now. But now I have the airbrush to hopefully be able to alleviate a lot of the base coating steps. My next couple of units were my Chaos Knights. So I finished off the Knight Ruinator, which is my cryptid Bigfoot Chaos Knight. It's in the famous Bigfoot pose, and I really enjoyed working on this one. I did a lot of the sculpting last year, but I still had some more sculpting to do before I finished everything. And it really took me until about 4 or 5 months after I started it to actually go back and finish it. I had a lot of analysis paralysis, trying to decide how I wanted to do it before getting started. And basically one weekend I was just like, you know what, I want this guy done. I'm really excited to do my next Chaos Knight, and I really would like this guy to be completed before I do that. So I just went after it, sculpted the top portions, so the shoulder pads and the shoulder, basically over a weekend, and then let all that cure, primed it, painted it, and really fell in love with it. And yeah, this one, I really like how he turned out. A lot of learning happened on this build, and a lot of just advancements in myself. I was able to paint this one very quickly. My knights have a very simple color scheme, and I really like it that way. And having that allows me to quickly knock out the painting aspect, so I can really spend time on doing some of the kit bashy or sculpting portions of it that I'll be doing on a lot of the bigger knights. And that leads me into my second Chaos Knight, which is a Knight Abominant. This is my Mothman Cryptid Chaos Knight. This one was also a ton of fun. An easier paint job than the last one. Not as many like grungy details and that sort of thing. Just simple black and purple with a bright chrome trim and dry brush over the legs. And this one was basically done. Obviously I had to epoxy putty the wings onto the back. These wings actually come from a like peacock dragon toy that I found on Amazon. I really was looking for like a 12-inch wingspan. I felt like that would be the ideal size to make it look as if these wings could feasibly lift something that size. So it took me a while to find those wings, but once I did, I ordered it and got them in. Those took a little bit of time. So it came from, I'll probably just show a picture of the kit or the toy that it came out of. The wings had sort of like an acrylic paint over them. They're this clear blue glittery plastic, and they also had like glued glitter on the outside. So it was quite a bit of scrubbing and soaking in isopropyl alcohol to try and get all that off. Probably took me at least 2 hours of back and forth scrubbing using hot water to like heat the plastic to try and get some of the glue to like crack and, you know, unadhere. It was a time, but I think the results speak for themselves and it came out looking great. Next up, I took a break from Chaos Knights and hopped onto my Tau. So this is mainly due to how they released the stealth battle suits. So they were in a dual kill team box at the end of 2025, but I obviously didn't want the Space Wolves half, so I don't play Space Wolves, I don't play Space Marines anymore. I was waiting for the individual kits to release, and it took them until like February or March to release these kits. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just wait until they release. Once they released, I bought a couple boxes, and then I was excited to paint them and get them ready to go because my list runs 3 units of stealth battle suits because I really like their guidance abilities and that sort of thing. Glad that's carrying over into 11th. But nonetheless, I basically bought these guys, built them up. I believe it was like the weekend I bought them or the weekend after because I might have been in the middle of a project at that time. But built them, painted them, and when I was building them, I was kind of deciding like, okay, how do I want to paint them? Do I want to do them in my typical Tau style, the clean edge highlights, all that fun stuff, or do I want to paint them like my Ghost Keels, which are more camouflage, a little more grungy and that sort of thing. And I decided to go with the grunge. I was like, you know what, I've painted all my other battle suits really clean and fresh, and I'd like something different. And also, I really do enjoy painting camouflage. It's actually a lot of fun and a lot easier than you might think it is to be able to apply that paint in a way to make it look convincing. Just kind of blotching, overlapping enough that it makes sense, going back with some previous colors to make some things feel like they're obscuring each other through the different various stacks of the pattern. And I did decide to do 2 different styles of camouflage just to give myself some more visual interest and sort of challenge myself. So I do have one unit that's more of a traditional kind of patched camouflage, and then I have another one that's more of a tiger stripe pattern. And I think they look great. This is also where I implemented the kind of leaf scatter on my bases, and I really like how that's looking, and I do plan on migrating that onto the rest of my Tau as I work through rebasing all of them. So my next project was the Seraphon Spearhead. So basically our shop was planning to do a Spearhead League, and in a bit of an impulse I ended up buying the Seraphon Spearhead box to build up and paint for that league. I've played 1 game for that league so far. It's just I've had other hobby stuff that I've wanted to do, and I've just enjoyed kind of going and hanging at the shop recently. So that's just kind of what has happened. So I have it painted up, it's ready to go. So when I do get back into the Spearhead hobby, I have it and that sort of thing. With this army, this was the first army that I had after getting my new airbrush. So I was able to use that for these guys. And there was a lot of learning that happened, and I really enjoy how they turned out. If you're wanting to paint Seraphon because you want to paint dinosaurs, I have some good and bad news. Good news is you are going to paint dinosaurs. Bad news is you're going to paint more ropes and armor and other stuff because it's going to have to be picked out in between your scales and that sort of thing. Just think about that if you're on the fence about Seraphon. And if that excites you, then definitely go for it. If that maybe doesn't excite you, maybe just buy a smaller box and see if you enjoy painting them. But these guys were great. I actually tested and changed their colors a few times while I was painting them. The airbrush allows you to quickly add base coats and stuff like that. So I was able to really easily kind of change out colors, decide which one I wanted to go with, and I ended up going with this very wide spread of colors because I really enjoyed that aesthetic a bit more. But yeah, I airbrushed these guys over a weekend. I did end up having to repick some of them just because I had painted them in one color, back into a different color, and then back into their correct color. Then basically spent the next couple of weeks slowly picking out all the other details and that sort of thing. I had originally thought about doing the marble effect on some of the more stone pieces, but just realized that I was dragging my feet on it because I didn't want to get it done. So I was just like, you know what? I'm not gonna go back and do it this way. And I also traded a quite large collection of Seraphon with a friend. So I ended up getting about 2,000-ish points of Seraphon in a few trades of Space Marines and Orcs and that sort of thing. And I realized like I'm not gonna be able to do the marble on all of these. So it's either do it on this one thing that ends up getting meshed with the rest of this army eventually, or find another scheme that'll work for everything. So I ended up going with a pretty basic stone, and then picking out the gems and stuff and some brighter like sapphire and ruby colors to just kind of add a little bit of visual interest and make it like it'll be more exciting when I do revisit the rest of those collections. And then my most recent addition to my fully painted armies are my war dogs. So I painted up the war dog executioner and the war dog huntsman for Chaos Knights. The executioner is Mothman themed, so pretty basic black paint, purple highlight, gold trim, and then orangish red on all the lights, eyes, and energy effects. For the huntsman, which is the lizard man, I did a dark, basically a 3-stage green, highlighting up a bright, orangish copper for all the trim. And then I did a lot more like damage on this one because it's going to get rough and rowdy in the combat phase. So I did a lot of paint chipping and a lot of dry brushing on the edges to make it look a bit more worn. But I really like how this one came out. I feel like the transitions are really smooth thanks to the airbrush. And on such a large model, but it's like bigger than the little guys, you can really work the airbrush a bit easier. And I really enjoyed kind of learning that aspect of it. I also love that because I basically just primed it black, and then for most of the skeleton, just did a mild dry brush. It gave it this kind of really like old and antique-ish looking effect. And I feel like that really fit the theme for what I was going for with the Lizard Man. And I'm excited to potentially just use that scheme on something else in the future. Not sure what army I would use it on, but I really like the color combination. It's really striking. To be determined if I'll end up finding a force to use that on elsewhere. Those are all the models that I've painted so far this year in 2026. So at the halfway point, I've painted 60 miniatures, which is crazy. I definitely wasn't expecting to have painted that many. And it's one of those things where you kind of just do the hobby, right? And you're not really thinking about numbers and that sort of thing. You're just kind of painting the boxes as they come or pulling them out of your backlog and that sort of thing and working through them. And then, you look back and you're like, oh, wow, I've actually painted quite a bit this year, even though I've, taken, weeks off of doing the hobby and that sort of thing. And it feels good. And I think everyone should kind of take a look back over your year or keep a, painting journal of what you've done, just so that way you can know like, okay, well, maybe my specific painting aspect hasn't improved that much, but my ability to get models done has improved. I've been able to complete more models in less time. And, progress is progress, whether it's a visual progress improvement or an efficiency progress improvement. So I hope that encourages you guys. I definitely want to look for the rest of the year at some other things. So I do have quite a bit of Tyranids on my desk, basically finishing out my goal of adding 1,000 points to my Tyranid force. I hope to have those completed within the next month or so, just so that way I can begin juggling around the new detachments with my Tyranids, like I mentioned in last week's video about the different detachments that I'd like to play for them. So I am still working through that and excited to get those done. For the rest of the year, I'm likely going to be looking towards Tau and Chaos Knights just to get a change. I've painted quite a lot of Tyranids this year, and I really want to show some love to my first army in Tau, but also my newest army in Chaos Knights. and maybe we'll try and get up to 2,000 points of Chaos Knights by the end of 2026, if not a little bit sooner. While I'm working through the rest of my models for 2026, I'll likely be posting more frequent updates over on my Instagram. So if that's something that you're into and you'd like to be, along the way in that, feel free to follow me over there. It's all about my painting progress or just silly kind of videos that I came up with while doing the hobby. If that's something that you're into and you'd like to follow me over there, I would appreciate it. And that way you can kind of be in the know on all this stuff at elderwood.minis if you'd like to follow me on my painting journey. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it when you do, and also especially when you get all the way here at the end. It really means a lot, and thank you guys so much for your support. Last week's video did very well for the standards of my channel, so I really appreciate all that you guys did with liking, watching, and sharing, and that sort of thing. So thank you guys so much. It really does mean a lot, and I will see you all in the next one. Later, guys.